Hello and welcome to A Journey to Awareness. Are you ready to take a voyage to the uncharted places within you, where you will be guided to ways to heal your wounds, look at your life choices, release your fears, and take control of your future? Stick with me through these podcasts and you will take the most exciting adventure of your life, the journey to you. Let's go. Hello and welcome. I'm Shauna Hoffman. I hope you've all had a wonderful week. I have this lovely friend that was telling me about an interaction she had with a young, very reactive associate. As I listened to her, I was completely in awe of her amazing communication skills, specifically how calm she stayed, how she listened and was not reactive, how she stated her own side of the issue with logic and not emotion. And she did it while still being true to herself and her needs. Wow, I'm not even sure I could have dealt with it the way she did. When I said that to her, she said she's been working on a very important human communication skill, responding versus reacting. Then she went on to say that this ability is what separates humans from animals. And in that moment, this podcast episode was born. If I could help every couple get to the place where each of them could respond versus react, their relationship would change. If I could get every mother and daughter, father and son, parent and teen to do this, I would happily be out of business. So what's the difference? Reacting is usually a more instinctive response to any situation, good or bad. There's an immediacy about it, almost automatic. And almost always it is driven by old defense mechanisms, ingrained habits, and definitely emotions. It's usually a very quick response that comes flying out of us and usually does not involve much conscious thought. It's ruled by emotion. In other words, no critical thinking and definitely no self-awareness. I've said in many a podcast that we really are programmed. It's as if our brain or our heart has been programmed by our past successes, our past experiences, our past communications, and definitely our past hurts. And along with all of that comes defense mechanisms. So what is a defense mechanism? It's what reactions we have created and even nurtured to defend ourselves against harm. For instance, if someone had an abusive parent that never listened to them, their usual reaction may be to keep quiet so as not to get hurt or leave the situation, defending against harm. So, this reaction as an adult may be just to get quiet in a fight, shutting down, shutting off, or to leave and escape the confrontation. That is not communicating or responding to the situation. It's reacting. Another scenario. If you had a parent that never let you win an argument, that always made you fight harder, scream louder, and longer to be heard, then chances are that is the defense mechanism you bring into adulthood and any argument that you're having with a spouse, a friend, a neighbor, or in the present. That auto-response to conflict is fight like hard to be heard and win. And that usually means you're not listening to the other person. You're afraid if you do, you will never be acknowledged as right in the fight. You're reacting and not responding to everything that is being said. Now let's say your defense mechanisms are not from childhood, but actually from the result of a previous bad relationship. Let's say that you were the quiet one as a child, example 1, and you married, example 2, the fighter and yeller who had to win. Chances are that if you finally got out of that possibly abusive relationship, you became the screamer yeller for fear of ever going back to being the quiet one. You swear you will never be harmed again. So your defense mechanisms change. Often the new mate has to look at these partners and say, I am not him. I actually hear you. You can talk to me and share your feelings, and I will hear you. Another scenario. the two screamers and fighters. It's like a perfect storm or a hurricane that can't be stopped. And the hurtful things that are said cannot be taken back. Again, both are reacting and not responding. And so often when I ask them how they feel afterwards, they hate the person they became in those situations. It's as if afterwards the awareness finally touches them. They look at themselves and they don't like what they see. So what is the answer that will change every interaction you have? You learn to respond and not react. Let me be clear. I'm not saying that we do not have feelings or that we are not hurt. It's that we learn how to respond in a healthy way so as to actually protect ourselves with wisdom and not arrows. There is a beautiful Buddhist wisdom called the second arrow of suffering. It's a parable that teaches that being struck by the first arrow is painful. Let's say that's the arrow that someone is throwing at you, something that they're saying to you, a hurt that's being hurled at you. But it is the second arrow that's even more painful. That is the arrow that you launch that is really striking you. Buddha says in life we can't always control the first arrow. However, the second arrow is our reaction to the first. The second arrow is optional. Wow, the second arrow is optional. That's what's in our control. Are we going to cast that second arrow knowing that it's not hurting our opponent, but only hurting ourselves? Responding and not reacting. Take a deep breath and think about this. Responding usually involves a much more thoughtful and definitely deliberate approach. We stop, we don't respond, we stop to think and feel. We think about what we just heard or witnessed. We become aware of how it makes us feel, hurt or angry. We check in with ourselves. We don't focus on them for just a second. We focus on ourselves. And we stop what's about to be an old defense mechanism and we decide how to respond in a healthy way. We do not throw the second arrow. It definitely takes a nice deep breath and true self-awareness to see how you do want to respond and think about how you don't want to respond. You stop. You think about the situation. You consider what the other person is saying. In other words, you hear them. And then you decide how to respond. It doesn't mean that you agree with them. It doesn't mean that you don't share your hurts or your feelings or your perception of the situation. But it means you do it deliberately instead of as an auto response to what your psyche is perceiving as danger, defending yourself against harm. I have another podcast episode, number 41, that's titled, I Don't Agree, But I'm Listening. Now there's a novel idea. To actually listen to the other person and still disagree without letting it trigger old communication styles or defensiveness. Self-awareness, not reacting, still being true to yourself and your needs, breathing and thinking before you respond. Don't shoot the arrow at yourself. So how do you be true to yourself in responding? You acknowledge your hurt or your feelings to yourself first and then to the other person. You explain how you perceive this situation in those fabulous I statements. I saw it this way. I was hurt when you said this. I am not feeling safe with you right now. I am sorry. Now, just because you're responding in a healthy way, sadly does not necessarily mean the other person is. I like to share two analogies with my clients. The first is the wheel of suffering. When someone is so upset and reacting in an argument, they're what I call on the wheel of suffering. And usually they'll do everything to get you to jump on it with them. Don't. When you're taking time to respond versus react, it's your way of staying off the wheel of suffering. You can't pull them off of it, but you have the power, the true self-awareness to realize when you're about to jump on it, stop. The other is what I call an hallucination. Sometimes you're in a fight and the other person is so reactive and out of control, It's as if they're hallucinating. Well, I guarantee you that there is no healing to take place when you join the hallucination with them. Stop, breathe, assess, and respond without reacting. The truth is, you cannot always control the other person in a fight and hope they're going to respond instead of react. But you possibly can keep the tornado from getting bigger and bigger. And you can definitely stop shooting yourself with the second arrow. Self-preservation. Sometimes it's all you can do. But I promise you this, you will have reached a new level of self-awareness and peace by doing so. And since this podcast is called A Journey to Awareness, you have taken another step on your journey. I want to leave you with this last piece of the second arrow parable. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. As this whole season is about changing up the music to our souls, this statement says it all. At the end of the fight, how much you let yourself suffer and replay it over and over is optional. It's your choice. If the disagreement has resolved, or even if it hasn't, stop your own suffering. Learn from it. Learn about yourself. Learn about your needs. Listen to your heart and then let go. Imagine how your life would change if you actually could learn this amazing new communication tool, responding versus reacting. Imagine how it will change your relationships, your communications, and most importantly, how you feel about yourself. I hope you have all jumped a few steps today on your journey to self-awareness. I hope that this next week you become more and more aware of your defense mechanisms. I hope you practice responding and not reacting. I hope you honor your truth and give yourself grace. To my listeners today, I hope you take loving care of yourself, drink lots of water, sleep peacefully, and surround yourself with loving beings. Thank you for letting me into your lives this week, and I look forward to popping back in again next time.
Thank you for joining me today on the Journey to Awareness podcast. My hope is that you leave this podcast inspired, fired up, and ready to take that next step on the magical journey of self-awareness. And then you come back and join us again. Be sure to visit me on my Facebook page, Working On Me, and on my website, workingonme.com, for past episodes and insights into the fabulous journey to you.